Straight to our big focus story. Chinese submarines are having what looks like a free, unchecked run in the oceans around India and coolly docking in Pakistani ports when they need to take a break. An explosive image captured on Google Earth by Twitter user and satellite imagery expert who identifies himself only as Raj47 on Twitter has nailed a Chinese nuclear submarine that docked at Karachi in May last year, providing what appears to be the first visual evidence to what has only been reported in news agencies so far. While the submarine type remains unclear, some experts believe it could be one of China's Han type or Shang type nuclear submarines, though this is not confirmed. But this does have disturbing implications, make no mistake, for India. Let's take a look at what those implications really could possibly be. This means that Chinese nuclear submarines are capable of penetrating Indian defenses in the Arabian Sea and the Indian Ocean at large. The big implication number two, Chinese nuclear submarines are potentially being able to snoop on Indian warships deployed in the Arabian Sea and beyond. Also, China has stealthily been increasing its military presence around India. If a nuclear submarine is docking in Karachi, it certainly indicates that. This also amplifies India's lack of a nuclear submarine fleet. India's conventional submarine fleet has also been languishing, but this definitely underscores India's total lack of a nuclear attack submarine fleet. Potential submarine cat and mouse between India and China. Could that be somewhere in the future? Are there indications of that in this explosive image that has just been sourced and put out? It's gone viral. Strategic experts across India, across China, certainly across Pakistan and the world will be looking very closely at that picture. All right, joining me live now, executive editor of India Today, Sandeep Unithan. We also have with us our defense correspondent, Jugal Purohit, and in a short while, we'll be getting reactions from the Navy and from strategic circles as well. Sandeep, I want to quickly come to you first. You've reported before on this kind of thing, Chinese submarines docking in Pakistan, the manner in which they've been trying to get closer to India. There have been contacts that have been detected in the past, reports of that kind. What are you making of this one picture, Sandeep?
Shiv, it's very, very significant, if I may say so, and the naval experts that we've been talking to call it, it's almost like a watershed moment in Chinese submarine deployments in the Indian Ocean.
Yeah.
Chinese submarines have been here. It's almost like the new normal for the last 3 or 4 years. There have been multiple submarine deployments. There's even been a nuclear submarine deployed 2 years back. But this is the first time that you have a Chinese nuclear submarine calling into port, pulling into Karachi port, and it's right there in full view, full public view of the satellite images for the satellite cameras to pick up. What this implies is it's signaling at multiple levels. I mean, the first, of course, is the politico-military level, where the Chinese are signaling proximity to Pakistan, the fact that they have a very, very close relationship that's deeper than the oceans and taller than the mountains, as they call it.
Right.
The second is, of course, their capability demonstration. Karachi is over 4,000 miles away from Hainan submarine base, which is where the submarine is thought to have originated from. With this deployment, the Chinese have demonstrated to the world that they are capable of sending out their submarines all the way there, and they can deploy them for 2 months, 3 months, and this has huge implications for countries around China.
Yeah,
right?
it's a validation of the capability.
Absolutely. And the fact that they've managed to, Chinese submarines have traditionally had trouble with their reactors, for which they've not been sailing out very often.
Yes.
They've been very confined to coastal waters. But with this deployment, they have signaled that they have now broken out of their first island chain, as they call it, which is the South China Sea, and they're free to deploy anywhere in the Indian Ocean.
Amazing. So it's basically a validation and a big politico-military message, not just to India, but really to the world, that they've broken out of that, first island chain. They're able to get 4,000 miles away from their home base. Huge number of messages at every single level. Jugal Purohit is also with us. Jugal, India's Navy chief touched upon the aspect of Chinese submarines gaining access to Pakistan, at his recent press conference in December. has there been an official response or a reaction from the Indian Navy, Jugal, to this photograph? Because this, like Sandeep just pointed out, adds visual detail to a story that's been known so far.
Indeed, Shiv. To answer your question, well, the Navy hasn't reacted per se, but then do you need a bigger reaction than the Chief of Naval Staff actually admitting that they are aware and that they are making efforts to track these submarines? Now, in November 2014 also, Shiv, we had a situation of a nuclear submarine, a Chinese nuclear submarine docking in Sri Lanka. That time, as we are aware, India had raised a lot of hue and cry. But the real question, Shiv, to be asked is, what has India actually done towards countering, towards better detection of these submarines? Because since 2008, under the guise of tracking Somali pirates and countering them, China has been ramping up its presence in the Indian Ocean. The submarines also were sent so-called to actually detect and tackle Somali pirates. So China has been completely unabashed in its approach. India, on the other hand, hasn't invested really far too much or hasn't really acquired far too many capabilities. We still do not have adequate anti-submarine warfare helicopters. We still do not have, the kind of submarines which can chase and call the Chinese bluff. We're lacking quite seriously, Shiv, on the aspect of
in fact, you've raised a very important and interesting point, Jugal, about about the Indian Navy and what they think about this. I want to bring in one of India's best-known naval veterans, Commodore C. Uday Bhaskar, who's with us on the phone line. Commodore Bhaskar, how worried should the Indian Navy be about this? The Indian Navy has known for a while that Chinese submarines have been able to gain access, but this is, a message of validation. It is a pretty aggressive, politico, military, diplomatic message as well. How worried should the Indian Navy be, sir?
Well, Shiv, first of all, I would say that the Indian Navy, like any military, quote unquote, should not be worried, meaning that there can be any exigency that has to be addressed or managed. But that's my first response, that if a Chinese nuclear submarine has been sighted off Karachi or in the Western Arabian Sea, it is a development that has to be monitored in a very, very, I would say, consistent manner. And frankly, I'm not very surprised. I just heard Sandeep making his observation that in a way it is a validation of China's nuclear propulsion in the event that this is a nuclear boat. I'm sorry I'm adding this caveat. Because we are now in a post-fact world. And I'm not quite sure about, the veracity of the imagery and what is what. But I want to make a broad point.
Okay, I think we've lost that audio link. I'd like our producers to put Commodore Bhaskar back on the phone line so he can complete his point. But while we wait for that, I want to go back to Sandeep on this. Sandeep, apart from the Navy's worries, etc., those obviously will be there. They've got to prepare for all kinds of exigencies. Doesn't this also, sort of by default amplify the Indian Navy's own submarine arm? The fact that not only does our conventional capability languish with low numbers, availability, etc., but also that we currently just have one nuclear attack submarine that's out there, and that's on lease.
That's right, and we have a conventional nuclear attack submarine program which has started very recently, about 2 years back. But we are at least a decade away from deploying multiple nuclear submarines. And the only way to detect and track a fast attack submarine like the Chinese submarines, which have been frequently deployed in the Indian Ocean, is to get in more nuclear submarines. And unfortunately, we just have one, which is probably going to go back to Russia in a few years, and we're going to get another submarine. So we are languishing at just one nuclear submarine.
And one is definitely not enough for what we need to do, right?
I mean, I think the Indian Navy believes that 6 is the number that we need, but we are like decades away from getting that
How many
number.
nuclear submarines does China have?
China has
roughly
something like 60 submarines. They have more than a dozen nuclear submarines. They have the world's largest submarine building program. And they have
so we're up against the best in the world, basically, in terms of numbers.
They're the second largest submarine fleet in the world after the Americans. And they have 5 different submarine programs concurrently running.
So nothing really tells it like numbers. We've got one leased nuclear submarine. China has 12. 12 of its 60 nuclear submarines, all built by themselves, are nuclear submarines. 12 of the 60 in their fleet. Commodore Uday Bhaskar is back with us on the phone line. Commodore Bhaskar, apology for that technical glitch. Please continue your point, sir.
I'm just saying that as far as the Indian Navy is concerned, I think we need to monitor the movement of Chinese boats, particularly nuclear boats, in the Indian Ocean. And this is a very logical extension. I just want to pick up the thread from Sandeep.
Yes.
Which is that China is now in the business of establishing its maritime credibility. And the nuclear submarine is a very, very important platform.
Yes.
And as we know, in the global hierarchy, the United States leads the pack in terms of nuclear propulsion underwater.
Yes.
The Russians are, I would say, a distant second, largely because of their economic vulnerability. And China is trying to catch up with both the United States and Russia in terms of underwater credibility.
Yes.
And that is what we are witnessing now. So which is why I was introducing this slight caveat, Shiv, if I may, to say that I don't think it's a question about worry for India, in as much as there is a certain inexorable reality, which is that China is becoming increasingly aware of the need to enhance its maritime and naval footprint in the Indian Ocean.
Right.
Therefore, we have Chinese submarines being supplied to Bangladesh.
Correct.
We have Chinese maritime/naval cooperation with the immediate neighborhood in the Indian Ocean. For instance, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Pakistan, Iran. So I think India should monitor all this and also be aware that China's GDP and its ability to invest in the military and the naval domain is of an order of magnitude of 4 times as much as India.
Correct.
So these are realities, and I think, let me again make this last point, that in terms of naval acumen, the professionalism that we associate with each service, I think the Indian Navy and the Indian military in general still has a certain niche or a certain texture about their professional competence, and the Chinese are aware of it, and they are bridging the gap very quickly.
Okay, so they're bridging the gap very quickly. That's a worrying thing to say as well. Commodore Bhaskar, thank you very much for joining us. I wanna just take things down, from the broader aspect of what we've been talking, Sandeep. To the actual, the technical stuff, when these submarines actually traverse through waters, through the Arabian Sea, they're built to be very, very stealthy. What are they capable of doing? Are they capable of snooping on Indian ships, on Indian installations, as they, make that journey across the Indian Ocean and through the Arabian Sea to Karachi?
Shiv, a nuclear-powered attack submarine is probably one of the most potent weapons of war that we ever know of. These submarines are capable of extended underwater stay. Their capabilities are only limited. Their endurance is only limited by the crew fatigue. The nuclear reactor can take them virtually, for the entire life of the reactor.
Theoretically,
forever, they can stay underwater forever. Or for the life of the fuel on board. So they're capable of snooping on other ships, other submarines, spying on the coastline. And in times of war to attack merchantmen and the numbers that we are hearing from the Navy is that it would take just 1 or 2 submarines to blockade the entire say the west coast of India or the east coast of India.
So can we assume, Sandeep, can we assume that when this particular submarine, the one in the photograph that we've been putting on air, when it made its journey from Hainan all the way to Karachi, along the way it potentially could have had tasks assigned to it to snoop on Indian ships or Indian submarines or Indian installations?
That's right.
It's possible?
We wouldn't know the presence of a submarine unless it was on the water or it pulled into port. And I want to highlight another point which Commodore GJ Bhaskar also touched upon, which is the need to monitor these submarines. And that is an area where we are working, I believe, very closely with the United States to monitor Chinese submarine activity. And there's been at least one case in the last 1 year where we've picked up a submarine on the surface. It was picked up by the US Navy and relayed to us. So I mean, this is another area of cooperation with the US,
of trying to spot Chinese submarines in the Indian Ocean,
because they have the capabilities that we don't.
Commodore GJ Singh is also on the phone line with us. He's a well-known naval veteran as well. Commodore Singh, what are you making of this Chinese nuclear submarine docking in Karachi last year? The image has only emerged now. How do you read this, sir?
You see, we have to look a little differently, put on a different lens. These submarines have come to Karachi. It is not the main base. They will be based in Gavadar. Gavadar is just about 90 nautical miles away from Karachi toward the west. And Gwadar is the port which is being connected with the, Chinese-Pakistan economic corridor zone. So this is something which needs to be worried about.
Okay.
This is something which is, worrying me in the sense that tomorrow the Pakistani are going to allow the submarines to be permanently based there. Now today they are visiting. But in the time to come they will be permanently based, and therefore there will be a big threat in the on our western seaboard. And all the other French countries which are around it. And these, as you were rightly mentioning, these submarines have the capability to come all the way from Hannan. In fact, if you ask me in terms of, distance and the days that it takes to come from Hannan towards Karachi is not much, because they travel from, they come from Hannan southward and through.
Okay, so it definitely is going to be a very Commodore GJ Singh. Thank you for joining us with that. We don't mean to alarm our viewers or anyone, but this is a serious issue we're talking about. A Chinese nuclear submarine, a capability that India is desperately trying to obtain for its own maritime forces as well. We're going to keep a very, very close track on the ripples and the waves this particular photograph continues to make, not just in India, but around the world. Sandeep, thanks so much for joining us. Jugal, also thanks to you. We'll keep tracking the Navy's reactions on this photograph as well. Coming up next, we're going to tell you about India's most powerful gun, India's own version of the Bofors gun. We've got an exclusive report.